Thank you for joining this latest episode of Coffee with an Expert. My name is Richard Porter. My colleague Davide Cipolla will be also presenting.
Good morning.
Good morning. The title today is Proficy at Scale, Precision at Scale, How Proficy Smart Factory Transforms Complex Discrete and Aerospace and Defense Manufacturing. As I said before, this is the third episode in Coffee with an Expert. A slide on housekeeping. On entry, all participants are muted. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We will leave time at the end to respond to those questions, and anything that's not answered during that time, we will respond to afterwards. The session is being recorded, and at the very end, there is a 2D barcode. Please, QR code, please scan that and take the survey. We are very interested in your feedback. As I said, this is the third episode of Coffee with an Expert in 2026. So please, again, do take opportunity to register for the other events. Any of these that take interest to you, we'd love for you to join and join us for a chat. Presenters today, myself, Richard Porter. My title here is Discrete Industry Principal. I have a long history of implementing MES systems or manufacturing operation management systems in manufacturing. Software engineer by trade, became a project engineer, a team leader, did some roles in project management. I have been a customer as well, and ultimately account management, and now this particular role, which is responsible for our strategy in the discrete marketplaces. Everything from heavy complex discrete, which is the focus for today, through to white goods. And that's everything in terms of marketing and product and so forth. Davide, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Richard. My name is Davide Cipolla. I've been in this industry for more than 15 years in different roles. Initially as a software developer, because I'm also a software engineer. And then I moved to project management, delivering project at customers for industrial software. And then I moved to this business consultant role, which is about listening to customers and understand how we can help. Happy to be here today.
Thanks, Davide. So for the agenda, most of you hopefully have noticed there's a lot of bright orange on these slides. That's because we are now a company called Velotic. And so I'll do a few slides to familiarize yourselves with the Velotic business, but I won't spend long on that because I want to get on to the main subject for the presentation, which is, first of all, challenges in complex discrete, the things that we typically try to solve for our customers. Then part 3 is the main body of it. We're going to talk about 3 use cases from those challenges, success stories where those use cases have been addressed, and then we'll do a demonstration for each of them. So number 3 is the main body of the presentation. There'll be a slide to talk about takeaways and then opportunity for questions and answers. So quickly, an introduction to Velotic. So Velotic came about, I think now we're nearly 2 months now, just approaching 2 months. Velotic is the merger of 3 software companies, Kepware, Proficy and ThingWorks at the bottom of this slide. Those 3 products have a logical connectivity between each other, which I'll talk to on the next slide. Coming together, we make about 1,200 employees, slightly more. We have a large dedicated partner network of over 150 partners. We operate in 27 countries. We have 8,000 customers currently out there using our software in real time. Our revenue is around 350 million per year. We focus on 3 main markets, although we do others like transportation. So we got discrete, hybrid and process. Today we are focusing on the left-hand side there, the discrete products. I mentioned the 3 product sets here, and the logic of them here is that at the bottom you see Kepware. Kepware is all around the data collection, the data aggregation, connecting things at the edge, pulling everything together. That then leads up to the Proficy systems. So this is the focus for today. A bit most people on this call will be familiar with. So Proficy are the operational systems, the manufacturing execution, and SCADA. That's the execution side of stuff. Then gathering the data and using that data then for analytical purposes and also planning and scheduling. Just driving the process as best we can and gathering the data so we can use it for the next layer up. This is where ThingWorx fits. This is providing dashboarding, connected worker type functionality, providing data in formats that can be used then for AI tools, and that whole lot fits together. And you'll be seeing more and more from us, and you'll be hearing more and more from Kepware and ThingWorx as we go. So that's the future for us. Bringing the companies together, we have a very large customer base. There's the 8,000 in the left-hand side. To focus for today, we are looking at the top left and the top right of this screen. Aerospace and defense and discrete manufacturing, so large machines typically. This is slow-moving, complex assemblies. Typically where we're talking about cycle times or takt times in the hours and days as opposed to minutes and, well, yeah, minutes. Okay. And ultimately, Velotic's ambition, we want to be recognized as the world's leading independent software company focused on industrial operations. You saw on the previous slide, we've got a very wide remit of product. And we are independent of hardware. We can connect to whatever's on the shop floor. It doesn't matter what you've got down there in your manufacturing process. We can connect to it. We can pull that together. We can consolidate your data, and we can augment that to improve your processes. So hopefully that's a little familiarized you with Velotic. Moving into the body of today's presentation, complex discrete aerospace and defense manufacturing challenges. The picture on the right hand side for your interest is an H-class gas turbine that's manufactured by GE Vernova in Greenville in North Carolina. That machine you see there is manufactured using Proficy. I've walked around that. I've been that guy stood staring at that machine. It's a very impressive sight to be in. So when we look at complex discrete manufacture, we see a number of challenges, common challenges we see. There may be other ones, but these are the ones that we see mainly and that we tend to address. I'll talk down these quickly. The first one, regulation and safety quality assurance. Much of complex discrete manufacture, particularly when you look at things like aerospace, is highly regulated. We mentioned AS 9100 there related to aerospace, but there's lots of regulation. We have to be very controlled about what we manufacture and how we manufacture it and how we report on it. Discrete manufacture will often have very complex manufacturing supply chains. Process manufacture, typically maybe tens of ingredients or components that go into the manufacturing. Discrete tends to have hundreds and thousands of components, and that makes manufacturing a lot more complex in terms of routing and the materials that come in. One that I find, I don't know, surprising, but perhaps shocking, when I ask this question to many customers, what's your biggest challenge? The third item, talent and skilled labor availability. This is the one where we're seeing a lot of skilled individuals leaving the industry for retirement reasons, but we're not seeing enough of an influx of younger people coming in to the business. What that means is that we have to capture that knowledge and we have to guide operators and train them up better to be more efficient. So we have to try and address that. Material management within the shop floor, I've kind of mentioned already in terms of work in progress and traceability. Fifth item down, customization. Many complex manufacturing processes are make to order or engineer to order. There are variabilities from customer to customer, and so we have to have flexibility in manufacturing to address those changes. Sixth item there, cost management. That's common to everybody. We have to be as cost efficient and efficient overall as we possibly can. Second to last is one we'll focus on quite a lot today. Limited insights from paper-based systems and siloed data. Typically, discrete manufacturing lags process industries in terms of they've still got a lot of paper, they've still got siloed data, and it becomes very hard, particularly when we start talking about AI and analytics. Having all that data in multiple silos and on paper makes it very hard for you to apply these new tools. And so trying to gather that data, to consolidate it, to contextualize that data and put it in a format that can be consumed by the different tools that you want to use, including our own, that's a really big challenge. And when I get to the references, you'll see that's probably the biggest one that keeps coming up again and again. If I take those challenges and then look at the outcomes, I'm not going to go through these words, and I don't expect you to do it now. These slides will be available afterwards and you can read them in detail. But with regards to the challenge, you expect outcomes. You expect to comply with the different regulations. You expect to have systems that help you to do that. You expect to have a user experience that puts the information you need in front of you at the right time and the right moment. You don't have to go looking for paperwork. It assures that you do things correctly. You expect to have data available in a system where it's easy for you to get to. You don't need to go, again, searching around to different systems to try and find the information you need. So these are the sort of outcomes you're looking for. And just to make reference again to our company, we've done this. Different customers, we've solved all these problems. I mentioned Aerospace, Eaton, Nissan and Webtec on the right hand side, and I'm going to talk about those references in a little bit more detail on the coming slides. Okay, but today I don't have time, we don't have time together to go through everything here. We're going to do 3 sections. We're going to talk about regulation and quality assurance, we're going to talk about talent and labour availability, and we're going to talk about cost management efficiency and using that data for analytical purposes, for reporting purposes. We're going to focus on those 3 items as per this next slide. We're going to go through a cycle of talk about the use case, talk about a customer that's been successful, and then do a quick demo. These are the 3 we mentioned, focusing on the first one. So the first challenge, talent and skilled labour availability. What do we need? We need to be able to give the operator what they need at the right moment at the right time. We need to make them efficient. So we guide them, tell them, okay, you've done that job, here's your next job, here's the instructions how to do it, here's all the specifications and qualification and data you need to do that job. Remove the paper, error proof it. If there's a task there that needs to be a nut that needs to be torqued up to a certain Newton meters, then we verify that was done and we do it automatically, and they can't move on until they've done that process. The example I have here is Wabtec. So Wabtec manufacture trains. You can see the picture on the left. They were very heavily reliant on manual processes, on paper, many multiple disconnected systems. That created inefficiencies, but also meant that with the thousands of components that were moving through the manufacturing process at any one moment, they lost visibility on where things were. So they wanted a system that could actually gather that in real time. They put in Proficy and the actions. They implemented workflows by using mobile tablets on the shop floor, routed the process, the product through the shop floor, and the result of that was the operators were accelerated. They did less walking, they had less paperwork to go and find, they knew where the materials were when they wanted them. That then enabled to do greater analytics and routing optimization. Some screen grabs, but I'm not going to talk about the screen grabs today because you can look at those later, but also because Davide is now going to do a demonstration of that component of the product. Davide, over to you.
Thanks, Richard. And I'll start by showing in Proficy Smart Factory what a route looks like. This is the first important point. We do execution based on routes. These routes can come from PLM systems. They can be synchronized with the MES. They can be managed in the MES itself, or they can be downloaded together with orders. So, for example, if the customer is working with heavy customization and make to order, the route can be downloaded together with the order. in the MES. And we have now here a simple, very simplified route, of course, for the manufacturing of a turbine disc. As you can see, there is 4 operations, and for each of these operations, there is 1 or more equipment units where the operation can be executed. And then, of course, the route comes with a bill of material, documents attached to the different operations, properties related to the different operations, and variables that we want to capture for them. But instead of showing them in the route, I'll move over to the operator task list and show how execution happens. And you can see here that there is several different task lists for different operators, depending on the job they have. And we can start by looking at the preparation operation for the operator taking care of machining and driving the machining operation. And as you can see, as I clock on as an operator, I am displaying the documents which are relevant for my operation. This is the preparation of the machine. There is a diagram of the component we are building. I can even attach a 3D view of the component if I want, just to make some example. And of course, there are properties attached to this so that the operator knows what they have to do. There is instructions in rich text that I can deliver with it. And this is how I am driving the correct execution of the operation. Not only that, but I also have a bill of material indicated here with only the materials which are allowed to consume in these operations, which means the operator can scan a barcode here for the material code. If that is recognized, he will be allowed to move on. If it is not recognized, he will be prevented from using the wrong component. And when I have to consume, I can, again, scan the serial number or the lot number of the specific quantity I'm trying to consume, or just search in the available inventory in what is next to me and decide to consume one of these. And as I consume, the genealogy link is created between the final product or the semi-finished product which I'm making and the lot which I am consuming. We will see that how that looks later. Of course, when it comes to driving manual operations, I can have a checklist to make sure that the operator is again guided in doing the right job, and the operator can be required, for example, to fill this checklist and provide the information that he has done the right job before completing the operation. And that gives you the idea of how these operations are driven. There is no paper. Everything is done through the screen. The operator has basically to follow the guidelines, and it doesn't have to rely only on his own knowledge. So that gives you a view on how this works. This is for the preparation operation, but when it comes to quality, it's very similar. We can come to an inspection station task list. Again, we clock on. In this case, it's a different work instruction for quality. And in this case, there is the bill of materials, of course, but on the other hand, in the quality tab, the quality technician or the operator that has to do the check will have to provide measurement. And of course, we're doing it manually now, but they could be provided by laboratory equipment integrated with a platform. And in a similar way, when we are working with machines, we can read data from process data from machines. And if I happen to enter something which is out of specifications, for example, we do manage quality specifications inside the MES. So even if everything else is inside the range of valid specifications, the system in this case will not overlook. An operator can, or a laboratory technician can make a mistake, but in this case, the system will not allow to complete the operation. It will show an error, and it will require to create a non-conformance report, which has a workflow to follow, so that quality department has to decide what to do with the defect and so on. This is to say that both manufacturing and quality follow rules, and the operator are guided in their job. They're not left alone. And basically all the paper is removed. And we will see how this later becomes, how the link we have created during execution becomes easily visible in genealogy. Back to you, Richard.
Thanks, Davide. So very quickly, I'm going to spend a minute on the next item. We have spoken there about the execution, the execution on the shop floor. The next side is then, once we've gathered that data, how are we going to then satisfy the regulations? How are we going to present that data? How are we going to do the genealogy? The example here is Eton. Pretty similar to last time. This is a tier one aerospace manufacturer. For everything they manufactured, they had 50 pages of paperwork over our 30,000 components. Looking at the fourth bullet, compliance relied on paper-based traceability. For as long as the plane was flying, 30 years or more, they had to keep all that paper for 30 years. And then looking at the second to bottom bullet here, the result, the paperwork issues went away. We leveraged standard work instructions and best practices. And at the start, we had 458 standard processes. By doing this, they were able to simplify everything and brought it down to 87 work processes. So it became so much simpler, and they got rid of the paper. Some screen grabs, but again, Davide's going to do a demonstration. So back over to you, Davide.
Thanks, Richard. And I'm going to talk a little bit about traceability. This is the work order screen where a supervisor or anyone really using the system can have a look in real time at what is the status of the order, understanding when the operation started, completed, and even check how much time was dedicated to each operation, who spent the time, and so on. But an even more interesting look is the one with the genealogy screen. And I have a serial number here that I want to leverage in order to show how this screen works. So I could read a barcode, or again, I can edit manually here. And this is specifically for a jet engine, again, simplified BOM, simplified routing, and so on. But if I enter here the details, I can start from the work order. It tells me all the information when things started, when it ended, how many pieces are in the lot, and so on. But when it comes to genealogy, material genealogy, I can see which materials were used to manufacture this and the quantities that I used. And this does not only give me the material codes, but indeed the lot codes, the serial numbers which I have used. And some of these materials, the ones started with lot, are raw materials which are delivered to us by vendors and suppliers. But the ones that have a serial number, I know they have been manufactured. They are intermediate material manufactured inside this plant. So I can navigate my genealogy backwards. And for example, I can go to this gas turbine, which is part of the engine, and see that it was consumed to make this engine. But it was, in order to manufacture this, we have used these lots and these serial numbers. So again, I have material code, I have lot code, and I have serial number code. And again, if I go, I can go back to any of these and see how they were manufactured. So here is a turbine disc similar to the one we were manufacturing before. And I can click on it and go back in the genealogy again and again and again. And similarly, I can take one of the lots that were used to make the turbine, and I can see of that lot how I use the different elements in that lot. For example, I can take this lot of compressors. They don't have a serial number. It was just a lot, so they were identified as a quantity. Initially, there were 7 of them, and they were all used. And I can see how they were used in the different jet engines, and I can see all the products that were made with it. So this is forward navigation from the raw materials down to the final materials. And it allows me, for example, to understand if I have a defective raw material, how to manage my recalls, how to define my recall strategy. Where have I used it? How much have I used it? Do I have to do something about it or not? The last thing that I want to show, and I will go back to the jet engine, is I can attach something which we call the lot passport. And let me just see if I pick another one with some data. And basically here the idea is I can basically find the, okay, I don't find the data here, but there is the possibility to see quality variables in the screen, see which ones are borderline with the specifications, see the result of the checklist, see what was entered by the people, so that I can understand basically how the quality worked and how the job was done by the people. And that is what, with one click, without having to go through paper records. Back to you, Richard.
Thanks, Davide. So that's how we show the genealogy, how we manage recalls. If there's a quality issue, what else was affected by it? Final section, this is then what do we use the data for? How do we take that data? How do we use it for analytics? How do we use it for AI? How do we make sure it's in the right format that people can use it easily? The example here is GE Aerospace. So they, again, similarly, they put in all that execution layer, particularly this is around actually wiring looms that go into jet engines, the example Davide was talking about. This is in the UK. The end result is that they use that data, the last bullet in actions, heightened visibility to routing level, allowing data-driven decisions to motivate improvements in productivity. They resulted in a 10% improvement on on-time delivery, and at the top a 1.95 increase in overall productivity. Again, some screen grabs, some typical screen grabs in terms of like OEE views or quality, and in terms of actually machine learning technologies. Davide, demonstration, final section, back to you.
Yeah. And sorry to come back for a second to the last point. I found a good code. You can see how the passport would work. And you see, for example, that if something is out of specification, it is immediately highlighted here. Sorry about that. Now, moving on to the visualization. This is an example of KPI dashboards that was realized using the dashboard designer component in Proficy Smart Factory. And as you can see, there is 3 sets of data: quality, non-conformance, labor, and throughput. And for each of them, we decided to have some, let's say, one dashboard representing data by month. So the raw data by month. And of course, we can attach money value to it. So immediately to understand how the way we are working is affecting our, let's say, efficiency, our productivity, and so on. We can also have a look at how things improved or did not improve over time, to have an understanding of, are we doing a better job? Are our continuous improvement initiatives working, and so on. And this is, like I said, this is all dashboards which were created with our dashboarding tool, which is a low-code, no-code tool. It allows you to create your own dashboard as an end user without knowledge of software development, and even the data which is made available by Proficy Smart Factory is very easy to bring in and to create your own views on data. And of course, this can connect also to third-party systems, not only Proficy Smart Factory. The other side of things is, instead of just visualizing data, leveraging the data to get insight out of it. And this is done with our advanced analytics component. Oh, sorry, just a second, it did log out from the session. But this component is basically, I'm just going to show a small example of it. This is the troubleshooter. And for example, if I have a lot of variables for a process, I can identify correlation between the variables, and immediately tells me that my target variable has the highest correlation with this slack depth process variable. So the thing that I want to do, just to verify if that is true or not, is plot them together, and immediately I would see, without having to do a lot of analysis, I would see that indeed these 2 variables are correlated, and one is affecting the other in a very significant way. If I move to another example, this is an example for example, injection molding, and I see that in this case I also have different variables coming from different systems together. What I can do here is just create a very simple decision tree model, and using a subset of data. And when I have this model, I can simply navigate this model and ask the software itself to divide the data into different subsets automatically. And for example, it tells me that the defect rate overall is 1.3%, but for this specific mold, it is 6.2%. For the other molds, it's just 1% for this mold. So maybe this mold needs calibration or adjustment, and I can proceed with this and say, okay, how can I improve this for this particular mold before I do any maintenance? And I can further divide it into sets, and from 6.2 we can go to 3.4% if we keep this final temperature under 70 degrees. But if I keep it below, historically speaking, I go up to 9.6%. And I can continue with this analysis going down and down for every level and continue with the other branch as well. This is just a small example of what this software can do. We can go further. We can create models, machine learning models, and use these models to do prediction, to do simulation, and to do optimization of processes. But that's too much to explain for today. So back to you, Richard.
Thanks, Davide. Sorry, this is slightly longer, but this is the last slide, and that was a brilliant example of machine learning there from Davide. So, final slide. We've spoken about 3 use cases of 10. If any of these are things you recognise, are things that you see in your own manufacturing processes, we'd love you to talk to us. We have solutions that we think will probably help you. Please reach out to us. On the next slide, there's some contact details. They're also in the chat. We want to hear from you. We want to be able to help where we can. So the final slide, as I mentioned, well, I don't think we really have time for questions today, but please do send them through. There's a contact at the bottom there, Cataldo Tarantini. Please send messages to that email address. On the right-hand side, there is a QR barcode where you can take the survey if any of this has been. We want your feedback. These Coffee with an Expert courses have been running now for several months, so several years, and we try to improve them each year. Right, I rushed that last little piece. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining us. I hope some of that was interesting, and we look forward to seeing you in future episodes.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.